I have tried 20 calorie and macro tracking apps over the years, but which one is the best? I've spent the last 2 years testing almost every calorie and macro tracker on the market. Myself and my team at 𝗕𝗂𝗁𝗏, which consists of registered dietitians, certified nutritional coaches. We tested each app for a minimum of 1 month, and we used every feature available at the time of testing. We paid out of pocket for any features that weren't free and didn't receive any freebies from the companies. For some of the more popular apps, I continue to use them well beyond the initial testing phase just to see how they evolved over time. But if you want to explore these apps further, I have included my links to my full video reviews on all of them, which is going to cover everything you need to know before trying them in the video description. And of course, just to note, this is just my opinion. You may or may not agree with how I ranked all of these apps, and that's okay. I would love your feedback, so please leave us a comment if you have a different opinion and you want to tell us a little bit more what you think. MacroFactor is the best macro tracking app on the market. I mean, hands down. It has the most sophisticated coaching algorithm that is constantly gathering data and refining its recommendations to give users the most accurate targets. It's also the only macro tracker on the market with an adherence neutral approach. The app's adherence neutral approach is really my favorite thing about this, because when I use the app, it doesn't punish me for not hitting my targets perfectly. MacroFactor takes note of what I'm actually capable of, and it adjusts its targets over time to meet me where I'm at. Other nutrition apps that I've used, they cut my calorie intake drastically if I can't hit my targets. They do this in an attempt to keep me on track with my goal, but that's not a sustainable approach, and it usually leads me and a lot of other people I know to quit tracking altogether. Another feature that makes MacroFactor stand out is it has 3 different coaching options. You can do coached, collaborative, and manual, which makes it beneficial for beginners and advanced macro trackers as well. Advanced people can use the manual option, which allows them to adjust their targets as needed without a weekly check-in. In contrast, beginners would benefit most from the coached option, which has weekly check-ins and automatic adjustments to what they need to eat. Now, I have several nutrition coach colleagues that were really amazed at how accurate these adjustments were week to week, and they were almost the exact same adjustments that they were giving to their clients if they were coaching them one-on-one. So it's pretty impressive, and it's very easy to log your food using the barcode scanner. You can also use manual entry, AI Describe. AI Describe allows you to log food by dictation, which is a really cool option. And the attention to detail the creators put into the food logging system is why MacroFactor has the fastest food logger on the market based on testing that we've done. I was pretty excited about the app when it first launched back in 2021, and it has only improved with each update, specifically the launch of new progress tracking features like progress pictures, your waist to hip ratio, micronutrient tracking, goal setting, and the expansion of their food database. The app really has everything to reach my goals, and it's an app that I trust to give accurate recommendations to those that maybe don't have a strong background in nutrition, or they're not working with a nutrition coach like I am. I think what really sets MacroFactor apart from other apps and makes it so successful is that the creators put in so much attention to detail in ensuring that it's updated as new scientific evidence emerges, and they really have a lot of willingness to include user requests. So if you're thinking of trying MacroFactor for the first time, here's a tip. The normal free trial on MacroFactor is 7 days. But if you use the code 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗁, you can get an extra week for free, giving you 14 days total. Do you want to learn more about my detailed experience using MacroFactor? You can also watch my full video review, which is linked in the top left corner of the screen. I've also linked my video for how to get started using MacroFactor for the first time. Several of the nutrition coaches that I work with at 𝗕𝗂𝗁𝗏 use Cronometer with their nutrition clients because it has a pro version, which makes their job as a nutrition coach a lot easier. It allows your coach to see their clients' food logs. They can monitor their progress. They can change their targets as necessary. Cronometer is particularly helpful for anyone dealing with chronic conditions and those following a specific protocol requiring them to monitor certain nutrients, because the app tracks 82 micronutrients along with calories and macros. You can also trust that the foods you are logging are accurate because Cronometer has the best food database of all of the apps on the market. The entire food database is verified, meaning each entry comes from an accurate nutrition database, and it's easy to choose your preferred measurement, whether that be grams, ounces, or cups. With a lot of other apps like MyFitnessPal, I've had trouble double checking each entry for inaccuracies, and it's sometimes really hard to find the food that you're looking for. Cronometer also stands out because of its tracking capabilities. It lets me track track my body metrics like weight measurements, body fat percentage, body temperature, and even bowel movements. You can also track your cardio metrics like blood pressure, heart rate, and oxygen levels. Lab metrics like blood glucose, hemoglobin, insulin, ketones, cholesterol, even mental metrics like your energy, your mood, your sleep. It's amazing how detailed it is. Cronometer is a perfect app for people who really love data and people who prefer a holistic approach to other types of apps. With these tracking capabilities, I assume that Cronometer would also be confusing or clunky, but after using it for a while, I really found that it was simple to use and it prevents the data using reports and graphs that are pretty easy to understand. The only downside of Cronometer and why it isn't in first place is that it really isn't for beginners. Cronometer doesn't have a built-in algorithmic coaching feature, so unless you're working with a nutrition coach, you need to update your targets manually in order to continue to see progress week to week. If Cronometer had a built-in coaching feature, it would likely be tied with MacroFactor for first place. For anyone who is more advanced and who is more self-sufficient with the nutrition, or maybe they're working with a nutrition coach, I feel like this might be the app for you. And if you want to try it, 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘁 has managed to work out a 10% discount on the Pro plan, which is automatically applied when you use the link that we put in the video description. I also linked my complete review for Cronometer below as well if you'd like to see information on that. This was the first macro tracking app with a built-in diet coach that I saw back when the app launched in 2015. Since then, the app has undergone a lot of updates that increased the level of customization and really improved the user experience. I love that Avatar also has built-in coaching, which consists of weekly check-ins and target adjustments. I also love that it has vacation mode, which is the setting that I can select when I'm taking a break from tracking so that the app doesn't expect me to check in. So when I'm having that 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗏 by the pool, I don't need to feel like it has to be logged. However, I need to point out one significant difference between MacroFactors and Avatar's built-in coaching. Avatar does not change the user's targets unless they are adherent. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing because, of course, you want to be able to hit your targets and see how your body responds before making any changes. However, we must consider that a lot of people may never be able to hit the targets consistently, and therefore they never get their targets adjusted, leaving them just feeling frustrated and just spinning their wheels. In contrast, MacroFactor's approach is to make changes based on what the user is actually capable of. If someone can't hit their targets that they set, it's going to adjust by considering what they can achieve. There's one thing that Avatar does better than MacroFactor though, and that is providing users with incredible macro-friendly recipes. Now, I'm someone who is always stumped with what to make for dinner, and I always am looking for new macro-friendly recipes to try. And I have to say that Avatar's recipe database is the best I've seen thus far for lower calorie, higher protein options. So if you're in the market for a built-in coach that provides recipe inspiration, Avatar is a pretty solid contender. I've also linked my video for that review as well. Carbon Diet Coach is pretty similar to Avatar, which makes sense considering Layne Norton as a co-founder of Avatar and the founder of Carbon Diet Coach. Carbon Diet Coach also takes a black and white approach to calorie and macro adjustments, requiring you to adhere to the targets before adjusting during the weekly check-in period. While this isn't necessarily bad, MacroFactor is a lot more intuitive and it works with the user rather than against them. All that to say, Carbon Diet Coach does have a really great built-in coaching algorithm. You have weekly check-ins and accurate calorie and macro adjustments, but it's just not the same level as it is with MacroFactor. I was impressed with Carbon's food database though, because it seemed to have all of the food that I searched for or scanned using the barcode scanner, and each entry comes from a verified food database, so you can trust the entries are going to be accurate. Logging food and manipulating the measurements could not have been easier using this app. The food logger really streamlined. It reminded me kind of MacroFactor's food logger, but with fewer bells and whistles, like no AI describe, for instance. I also liked how easy it was to customize my intake to suit my preferences. I used the calorie planner to increase my calorie intake on an intense work day to fuel my training sessions, and then decrease my calories on rest days just to keep me on track with my goals. I see this feature being popular for those who train consistently or who want to periodize their nutrition based on their training, and for situations where I eat more than planned in one day and I just want to compensate for it the next day just so I can stay on target. I honestly can't say anything bad about this app because it does exactly what it's designed to do. It's easy to use, doesn't have any fluff. It's precisely what I think a lot of people want. I ranked it lower than Avatar because I appreciate that Avatar has a recipe database and the ability to talk to a live coach. But others who don't care about those additional features may rank them differently. You can also check out my review for Carbon Diet Coach in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. MyMacros Plus is kind of similar to MyNetDiary, but as its name suggests, it prioritizes macros over calories, which I personally prefer because I care more about monitoring my macronutrient intake than my calorie intake. Meeting my macro targets is going to ensure that I look and feel how I want, and it'll add up to my desired calorie target anyway. This app followed through on its promise as a macro coach because you have the weekly check-ins. It adjusted my targets as necessary to keep me on track with my goal, and I was pleasantly surprised that the recommended macro targets and the associated calorie targets were accurate, because often a lot of cheaper apps are less accurate. And the coach that I'm working with said that everything was right on track for what it should be. Now, what disappointed me about MyMacros Plus was its food database, which I expected because a lot of users complained about the inaccuracy of the entries and the lack of diversity. The food database didn't contain many of the everyday foods that I typically eat despite having a barcode scanner, which is pretty annoying because other apps I tested had most, if not all, of my go-to foods. However, the foods the database contained were accurate, and I found it easy to change the measurements of the foods I was logging, so there were some positive aspects regarding the food database. Based on my experience, though, I'd say that MyMacros Plus is a really good fit for those who want a more budget-friendly tracker with a built-in coaching feature, and they're willing to create their own foods in the database rather than relying on a pre-existing database. One of my favorite things about MyNetDiary is that each food entry has a rating of A to D based on quality. This feature really helps to educate users on the value of food beyond just its calorie content, which a lot of people I think often overlook. And the app is also really straightforward. It provides access to a community that offers support and encouragement. It provides recipes and meal plan inspiration, and all that stuff is just so valuable. My main complaints about MyNetDiary are that the calorie recommendations are a lot of times not accurate, and the macronutrient targets are not readily displayed, which makes them feel sort of like an afterthought. Also, the virtual coaching feature is just a little bit misleading. MyNetDiary's calorie recommendations are not as accurate as possible because they don't factor activity level into their equation. The equation that they use is probably suitable for someone who doesn't work out, but for those that are active, they're gonna find the recommendations inaccurate because on days that you work out more, you're gonna need more calories. For example, the app recommended that I aim for 1,500 calories to lose 1 pound a week, but I maintain my weight by eating 2,300 calories daily. So if I were to eat 1,500 calories, I would actually be on track to lose 1.6 pounds a week. I appreciated that users could just adjust their targets manually to make them more accurate, but as my nutrition coach colleagues have pointed out, most people need more knowledge to do this independently. Another thing that disappoints me is that the virtual coaching feature is essentially just a tool to recommend recipes and meal plans rather than an algorithm with weekly check-ins like the other apps that I ranked so far. Although I wish I could change things about the app, MyNetDiary is dirt cheap. I mean, it has a lot to offer considering it's so inexpensive. With that in mind, I think that this is the perfect macro tracking app for those who are looking to spend as little as possible. Now that we've gone over our top 6 apps, there's actually 3 more apps that I want to mention that didn't quite make the top 6, but since they do have some major drawbacks compared to the others on the list, however, they still have a lot of really redeeming qualities, and I think they're worth mentioning. So with no specific order, first one I'll talk about is 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁. I think this deserves an honorable mention because of the emphasis 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁 placed on health. It has incorporation of habit tracking, healthy recipes, food ratings, and it's got the health test feature, which are really valuable, and I think they're great for people who are really trying to change their lifestyle. However, 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁 didn't quite crack the top of our list because the meal plan feature wasn't really well executed. Most of the meal plans are centered around more fad diets like keto or fasting. Of course, not knocking anyone who likes to do those diets if that's your thing, but I just didn't feel like it was personalized to the user. The next app that didn't quite make the list, but it's still a great app, is Noom. And I gotta say, Noom is probably one of the best nutrition tracking apps on the market because of its emphasis on behavioral psychology. They encourage a real lifestyle change by educating you on how to have a better relationship with food. That being said, I can't say that it's the best food tracking app out there though, because it doesn't even track macros, and the calorie range was way too broad, which sometimes can lead to either over or under eating. Not to mention, it's also the most expensive diet tracking app on the market right now. The last app I'm going to mention is MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal, of course, it's the OG. I was using this as my first macro tracking app, and I used to really like it. But having tried it recently, I have been really disappointed in how it has evolved over time. It has a lot of inaccuracies in its food database. It also tends to have poor calorie recommendations. Additionally, more of its features, like the barcode scanner, are now behind a paywall, paywall. So if you don't upgrade to premium, it's not really worth the price compared to the others on this list. I would still recommend MyFitnessPal though for anyone who's traveling abroad because they still do have the best food database for international foods. Now that we've rounded up all of our favorite diet tracking apps, let us know what you think. Does MacroFactor deserve to come out on top? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.